Hi everyone, this is Nikki from Happily Lost. In this video we're going to talk a bit about my research that I completed in 2020. And what was my research? I was looking at the orgasmic capacity and experience for trans women post-genital surgery. For this part I will be talking about my research objectives, what I found and what were they, of course. In the following videos, at the end of each month, I will be delving into the themes which came through in my research. Please be aware these videos are going to be long. Can't avoid it. It was a big thing. So before we get into this anyway, I would like to remind you about pressing the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of any updates. Give this a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you like. And leave a comment down below. That's also helpful. Don't forget I also got my Facebook, Instagram, website, and yeah. So let us get into it right after this. Before we even begin, there are a couple things I need to say in regards to the data and the participants. First up, nowhere do I claim that these participants are typical to the wider community. The results are not generalizable, partly due to the methodology that I used, which was qualitative, and partly due to the small number of participants that I had. that I interviewed for this research. So this was not necessarily a representational sample of experiences. It is all very likely that the participants' experiences are atypical. We cannot say either way. Secondly, in my research paper, when I talk about participants, I used pseudonyms. And I'll stop getting tongue-tied on that one. Here on the public sphere, I'll take things a bit further to protect the participants' identity. I will generalise their experiences, and if I do talk about individuals' experiences directly, I will depersonalise it as much as possible and not use any name, pseudonym, or whatever. They will just be referred to as participant. Thirdly, this research was by far bigger than I had even imagined. So we were not able to cover as much as we needed to. Fourthly, I would like to thank the participants for sharing their experiences and their stories with me. It was amazing. I cannot thank them enough. Fifthly and finally, I do not believe and do not suggest that reaching orgasm in any sexual activity is an absolute must, nor that it is and should be the ultimate goal of any sexual activity. I cannot stress any of these points enough. Right, let us talk a bit about what my research objectives were in the first place. Before we do that, the aim of my research was to investigate the orgasmic capacity, orgasmic experience, and the meaning attributed to orgasm for trans women who have undergone genital surgery. What I mean by this is that they have undergone vaginoplasty with or without clitoroplasty. To do this, I had three objectives. Firstly, to explore changes, if any, affecting orgasmic experience for trans women pre and post genital surgery. Secondly, to explore definitions of orgasmic capacity and pleasure as it relates to the construction of self and identity. And thirdly and finally, to explore trans women's experiences and perceptions of healthcare received during treatment and conversations had concerning sexual function changes pre and post surgery. In the end, I ended up with 4 main themes with various sub-themes. I'll go into these in more depth in later videos. However, I will say that the themes were roughly categorized as orgasmic experience, orgasm, pleasure and self, interpersonal costs, and perceptions of healthcare. Okay, let's talk about the first objective. Changes affecting orgasmic experience. All of the participants in the end were able to reach orgasm. For some, it took longer than others. They experienced a shift in their orgasm from what they considered to be a male orgasm to a female orgasm. The timing of the shift was not entirely heterogeneous, with the majority experiencing a shift pre-surgery but post-hormones, whereas for a few it was post-surgery and obviously post-hormones. The majority of the participants tended to describe their orgasm post-surgery as less intense but more pleasurable, and saw the shift to be a gender-affirming for them. Some researchers have suggested that following hormones, people experience changes in sexual desire, arousal patterns, and genital sensitivity, which leads to changes in orgasm experience. However, other researchers have suggested that the change in orgasm experience is in part due to the person progressing along their personal journey, which leads to easing of the experienced gender dysphoria and improved body image. This results in better sexual function and satisfaction. My own research tends to suggest that it is a combination of both of these approaches, that one mediates the other. However, it is important to note that participants seem to experience several periods of relearning how to reach orgasm. The first following hormones and pre-surgery, and the second following surgery. As can be appreciated, following surgery, learning how to reach orgasm was complicated by the healing process. Additionally, it was further complicated by anxiety over hurting their newly healed genitals. I always say that funny, don't I? And concern over being orgasmic. As part of the relearning process, participants adjusted to changes in their sexual arousal patterns, orgasmic capacity, and libido. Through this relearning, participants experienced increased comfort with their physical self, enabling them to engage with themselves in new terms, resulting in participants interpreting the changes as a further gender-affirming experience. Before we move on to the second objective, let us briefly talk about complications. The majority of the complications resided in the healing process, resulting in participants experiencing scar and granulation tissue. The impact of this was on their ability to dilate, and for some, on sexual activity. For some, to correct this issue, revision surgery was required. Dilation, and if you didn't know, a dilation is a process of maintaining the vaginal size, which is important following surgery and in the future years if you wish to maintain that size. There were other unfavorable surgical outcomes which led to participants to seek revision surgery. However, this was in the minority. These were limited to excess corpora corvicina, and I forgive my pronunciation, and uneven labia. Despite these complications, all but one participant did not experience the healing and surgical outcomes as interference for orgasm. I repeat, only one experienced it as an interference. As an outcome of their experience and relearning, participants found it to be gender-affirming, natural, and validating. Following surgery, participants seemed to continue their exploration of self with a new sense, finding self and societal acceptance. Right, Adjective 2, which was definition of orgasmic capacity and pleasure as it relates to self and identity. I found that participants' desire for sexual activity changed. Pre-surgery, their desire was based around the need for orgasm. Conversely, post-surgery, their desire seemed to be based around connection and also pleasure, far above orgasm. In relation to connection, it was both with self and partner. In the matter of orgasm itself, several participants referenced an experience of male orgasm as unpleasant and painful, whereas following surgery, they considered their female orgasm to be less intense but more pleasurable. It's important to note that the unpleasant and painful experience still occurred post-hormones but pre-surgery. I theorized that in part this may have been due to a downward comparison of the valued female orgasm to the devalued male orgasm. Researchers tend to suggest this understanding also. However, it is likely that there is also a physical component to their experiences which needs to be considered. As I mentioned previously, several participants had revision surgery due to what they considered to be unfavorable surgical outcomes. I also mentioned that one of the reasons was uneven labia. I'm not devaluing their experience or thinking ill of them here. I do not hold them in judgment at all. It is more of a point on how they have embodied Western society's perceptions of female form. Here I'm making note on how the participant had internalized the idealized genitalia form, which led them to have revision surgery and risk further surgical and healing complications. No surgery is without risk of complication. No healing is without a risk of scarring. The truth be known, if I had the resources available to me following surgery, I too would have gone and got some revision surgery done. What I am trying to point here, and I'm not doing it very well, I must admit, is that trans women do not escape society's perceptions of what the ideal female form is, and they take it on board. As a result, they have to navigate their own expectations, fears and concerns of maybe not appearing normal. No, let us not call it normal for any of us. Instead, let us call it what it really is, not appearing average. After all, that is what normal is, a societal average which is generally unreachable. Okay, I'm going to run through the next part of this objective relatively quickly. For the most part, it goes without saying. Participants faced several personal barriers to surgery. One of them is the cost of surgery. Some of them sought cheaper surgeries. Others sold houses, mortgaged their home, and for some, they stripped their superannuation to afford the surgery. What came through in the research was that they were willing to sacrifice whatever financial future they had in order to achieve a future in the end. It was this very financial issue which caused some of the participants to delay transitioning and delay seeking medical treatment, or surgery for that matter. For some, they delayed it for as long as they could until they had no choice but to act. When they did act, they moved with such determination to reach their desired goals. So, what is left to be said? Well, there is the one about dilation. Yep, I mentioned it before. Well, dilation is necessary, or regular penis penetration, to maintain vaginal size. It is very clinical, very medical. At least the equipment that is supplied to you is. Apparently silicone dilators can be better. But anyway. But for some participants, they try to develop a good, healthy relationship with the practice. But it just was not enjoyable, no matter what they tried. They even tried to involve some pleasure time with it. But the result was the same. It was difficult to maintain regular dilation. And then if there is surgical or healing complications, it made it more difficult to maintain the practice. Now, I have mentioned a few times about the complications following the surgery. So, shall we address the elephant in the room? Regret. Did any of the participants experience regret, regardless of complication or not? Simple answer is no. None. What I found was that the participants seemed to experience a sense of peace with an essential part of their journey being completed. Additionally, participants felt relief to be fully themselves at last. In essence, this indicated that while the surgery and the outcomes were not part of their identity and self, the end product of the surgery was an important aspect. This interpretation was in line with other research, indicating that through various stages of participants' journeys, there was an increased sense of authenticity, which in turn improved perceptions of self-acceptance. I realize I've been talking for a long time, so I will try to keep this next objective relatively short as possible. So, third objective was experiences and perceptions of healthcare and genital surgery. Generally speaking, majority of the participants held negative perceptions of healthcare professionals. They feared that the healthcare professional would display prejudice and discrimination towards being transgender and would have a lack of knowledge regarding transgender health issues. Indeed, some participants did experience these issues with healthcare professionals. To counter this, several participants took it upon themselves to act as teacher for the professional. And in doing so, they were involved in educating them in transgender issues, whereas others believed that was not their place to educate the professional. Additionally, participants felt that it was a concern that they knew more than what the professional did. Consequently, some participants ruled out seeing any professionals who were not proven to be trans-friendly and knowledgeable. As for care and instruction following a surgery, the majority of the participants received little information or guidance from surgeons, from surgeon medical staff, or the general medical community as a whole, leaving participants up to educating themselves through trial and error or through limited information available on the internet. This did not just include anatomical structures of their genitals, but also regarding hygiene and care. However, participants also noted that it would have been uncomfortable for them to receive information like this from surgeons and medical staff. Some participants did indicate that they would have liked some resources to help them adjust to their newly formed genitalia, but felt it should be limited to information as they were capable of learning through experience. In essence, and this is a bit of a conclusion, this is a direct quote from what I said in my research. Participants experienced a progression of relearning their sexual function orgasmic experience as they travelled through their personal journey from pre-hormones and genital surgery to post-hormones and surgery. With each step on their journey, their understanding of self and identity was redeveloped based on their previous experiences and challenges leading up to full self-acceptance. Following surgery, participants continued their discovery of self, leading to new sexual and life experiences. Additionally, participants experienced challenges when interacting with medical professionals, which led to avoidance behaviour for some and an educational role for other participants. Well, that pretty much sums up my findings in relation to the research objectives. I hope you found this to be interesting, and I am sorry about it being that long. Anyway, over the coming months I will go into the themes in my research and hopefully keep these videos, well, a little bit shorter. Anyway, if you like this content and would like to see more on motorcycles, art and sex related content, don't forget to subscribe and press the bell to be notified of any updates. And as a gentle reminder, I also have my Facebook, Instagram and website and merchandise site. And don't forget to give this a thumbs up or thumbs down if you like, and leave a comment down below. So until next time, bye.